Thank you for joining us again today for another episode of United for a Healthy Stoughton. Today we're going to be talking about how playgrounds build healthy communities, the story of Halloran Park. And so today I have with me John Denison, who's our Recreation Director. So welcome, and thank you for joining me.
Glad to be here.
Great. So today we're going to start off our show with a short video clip. We're talking about the story of Halloran Park and its revitalization and renovation. And in 2014, the Stoughton Town Meeting voted unanimously to use community preservation funds to pay for renovation and revitalization of this playground and park space. So we're going to start out with sharing with you the video that was shared that night at town meeting. It'll give you a little bit of history about the project, and then we'll talk some about what happened.
Halloran Park is kind of a special place in Stoughton, and it is our intent in this playground renovation to very much extend the park down into what was kind of a separate place where the Cap Playground was, and to kind of unify the park with the playground.
Nicole Knapp. I have two kids that are both under 2, and when we heard that the playground had been knocked down, I was so sad because we've lived here for a while, within walking distance, but we enjoy coming here and we're excited to have something for their age group and that we'll be able to use as a family.
Over the last few years, we walk around every morning, and it's a lovely place. It became a very social event. We formed some fast friendships out here, and not just with the dogs, but some of these roommates.
And we find a lot of fellowship down here. A lot of great people come down here. Some to walk their dogs like we're doing, and some just to come and just walk and exercise. It's one of the gems of Stoughton, I think.
Amy Starkenberg, and this is my dog Kenai, and we love Halloran Park. We come here almost twice a day, and it's always great to see people out playing volleyball on Sundays and the kids in the playground. So looking forward to the rebuilding of the playground.
We're very much committed to extending this parkland, providing better lighting, better security, and making it a park that everybody can use.
And this expansion of the park to include some new playground equipment, benches, and a walking path will be beneficial to all of Stoughton. So I'm really excited about this project, and I appreciate everybody's hard work and support of this entire project, not only from the ones that we're doing now, but for those who started it in 1989. This has been a lasting tribute to Stoughton's strengths and its ability to come together. So thanks very much.
My name is Nicholas Laureato. This park supports Stoughton. Everyone likes to come over here and play basketball and playground and all that. I know it's a good thing getting rebuilt because it needs it. It's old. People come here every day, even cold, winter. It's a nice park. That's good. I like how they're doing it to renovate the town, help the kids out. So, good job, so proud of you guys.
Yes, it's a place where everybody can just go out and play and have fun.
I like that because in my language, a big slide, a little slide, baby slide.
to see this marvelous green space that we have down there. It's definitely the jewel of Stoughton. I think that the addition of a new playground to that will just top the whole thing off. To see the amount of people that are using it, from 1 to 101, they're out there with tricycles and skateboards and bikes and walking dogs and playing frisbee and flying kites, and it's a great place to be.
So we wanted to share a little bit about the history of this project, and so I thought that we could start with talking to John about why this project needed to happen.
Well, it was pretty obvious decision if you were the recreation director and looked at what we had there. Originally it was called CAP, Children's Adventure Play Space Project. It was a massive, sprawling wood and tire structure that was over 24 years old, and it had become impossible to maintain. It was really becoming dilapidated. Town's insurance company had great concerns about the safety of it. I had great concerns about the safety of it. We spent a lot of money and a lot of time trying to maintain it in the last several years of its existence, but we just could not keep up. It just was something you just could not get ahead of anymore. And besides that, we knew, and this is really where an awful lot of collaboration began to take place. We knew from talks with Oasis and the police department and even Public Works, our own maintenance crews. We knew that we had some serious problems with really risky behaviors that were occurring in and around that playground because it was kind of a lot of enclosed spaces. So a lot of kind of hiding out and secretive kinds of spots, and kind of allowed and encouraged some negative, unhealthy behaviors.
Right. Yep. And we heard that from teenagers too when we were doing focus group with high school students, that they actually told us that the CAP was a really cool place to hang out, and we felt like maybe we shouldn't be hearing that from high school students. We really want to be hearing that from families and kids, and that wasn't really the target population when that space was built, I imagine.
No, it wasn't. And although the CAP was terrific in its day, and in the first dozen or so years, and I think there really was a focus on families who used it. Over time, for whatever reason, any number of reasons, it became less of a family place and more of a hangout for young teens and even some older teens and young adults. And it just, it was right next door to Halloran Park, but there was a feeling of separateness, and we really felt, that Halloran Park was being used in such a positive way. We just felt the integration of the two properties, they're right beside each other, could really make it a safer place, a more desirable place for families, and a healthier place.
Great. So that was one of the sort of areas of concern that you thought about when we were redesigning that space, was the issue about the enclosed spaces and the kinds of risky behaviors. What other things were you thinking about when we had the opportunity to redesign this space?
Well, certainly what you say, we wanted to open up the area. We wanted to connect park and playground and make a feeling of a sense of unity, wholeness, that this was all one place, which it is. We wanted better accessibility for handicapped individuals. The old playground, although it had a stone desk pathway in, it really wasn't terribly accessible. And we thought, this was our opportunity to create that access. And we also knew that in the town of Stoughton, we have many playgrounds, actually. Every elementary school has one. We also have the Lesson Memorial Playground up on West Street. But the truth is, most of the playgrounds we had in Stoughton were designed for older kids. And many of them, all except for the lesser playground, were attached more or less to a school. So during school days, when school's in session, those playgrounds really are not available. And I think, our thinking was that we could use space for playground space, play space, for parents with young children where they could go in the fall, in the spring, when the weather's nice and school is in session. And this public area was really a perfect location for that.
Great. And I know that initially when we were exploring the project, there was some concerns about it being, we were referring to it as a tot lot initially. And so can you talk about the kinds of things that went in there and the types of equipment? And
Well, we met with neighbors. We had some kind of focus group meetings, and we knew certain things in the old playground, Cap playground, were popular. The big embankment slide, which we included in this design, is certainly for all ages. It's a different look than the old huge green slide that came down from a tower. The idea of it being on an embankment makes it safer. If you fall off, you don't really fall down. You
Right.
land right on this poured-in-place rubberized surface. We also decided, while we had some play equipment for younger children, that 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old group, certainly if a family came and they had an 8 and a 9-year-old, they'd want something to play on. So we have school-age swing seats, and we also have tot swing seats. And we also kind of gave into the notion that, maybe some kind of a climbing structure that would appeal not just to little ones, but to bigger kids. So you see the rock block climbing structures, and that kind of works for all ages. Little 2, 3-year-olds can balance on the low pieces of it, and the older kids can climb up, be more challenged on the bigger structures. So the other thing about the location of the playground is, and we talked to parents who said, my child gets kind of tired of the playground stuff pretty quickly, no matter where we are. And if we bring a wiffle ball and a wiffle ball bat, they'll go up on the field up above and play. So with the new sight lines and the way we kind of opened up the playground to the park area, parents could see an older child up on the field while they're with a younger child down on the playground. So it kind of, it's just more functional in a lot of ways.
Great. And I know I've noticed, because I take my daughter over to the playground sometimes, the structure, it's called the Tannenbaum, which is I don't know if we can pull up a photo of that. Yep, the merry-go-round kind of thing. I've seen kids of all ages playing on that together, which is really neat. That particular structure seems like it encourages the older kids are running the thing around for the little kids who are sitting in the middle, or kids are climbing up it. And I've also seen a lot of kids doing hopscotch and sidewalk chalk on the paved walking path, parents walking laps, trying to get some exercise while their kids are playing. So it's been really pretty neat over there.
The Tannenbaum is a kind of a cool structure, and if I had known it was going to be that popular, and it's one of the most popular pieces, it's always busy. It would have been kind of cool if we could have had 2, but you can only do so much.
Right.
But that does kind of serve kids of many ages, and kind of encourages, in many cases, the older ones help spin the little ones around and so forth.
Right, they never tire of that, I don't think.
No.
So can you tell us a little bit about some of the folks who were in the organizations that were key collaborators behind this project, some of the departments that got involved?
Well, yes. I mean, it started a long time ago, and people don't realize how long it takes to kind of plan this kind of a project. But I think it was initiated in a great way back. 2012, when the YMCA got a grant, and my collaboration with the Youth Commission and Oasis, and joining in with the Y on this Pioneering Healthy Communities initiative, and we decided that, you know, one way to healthy communities was infrastructure, sites,
Right.
and what we do with the land we have and what we have on it. So those relationships in the early stages with OASIS and the Youth Commission and Pioneering Healthy Communities really were kind of a starting point, a genesis. And from there, with a little assistance and funding, we did the feasibility study, but just to see where we could go with this. But in terms of collaboration at that point, my work with our Public Works Department and John Batchelder, the superintendent, was huge, because we knew that we would need some help and work done in kind. And Public Works Department was tremendous in that way in helping us out. And we also relied on our own engineering department in Town Hall, under the direction of Mark Tisdale, town engineer, to do some basic site work and save us an awful lot of money in terms of providing an accurate survey of what we actually had, grades, heights, and so forth. We worked with the police department. We tried to get in, have them in, get their input into the kinds of behaviors we were trying to kind of design out of it, and call it environmental design, but you know, that the site, the idea that the site work and the way we design the site could contribute to healthy behaviors. And you put all those organizations together over many meetings, and it really actually turned into a terrific project. And I have to mention, you know, Community Preservation Committee, which was the source of our funding, as approved by town meeting, but worked with them as well. And I mean, it was really only met with them 2 or 3 times, but there was a lot of communication about what our intent was, what we thought this could do for the community, and not just as a play space, but as a place where families would go, and it's kind of a healthy option for play and for exercise.
Yep. And I think you see a lot of that in that original video, where you see all of the different uses of that, the park and the playground. I think actually when we shot the video, the playground was already gone. The Department of Public Works had already taken it down, because we knew that things were going in a different direction. But you can see all of the video footage of people walking their dogs, using the basketball courts, you know, playing with their kids, flying kites, all of the other great healthy behaviors and things that families use that space for. And I don't even think that was a warm time of year when we shot that video.
No, I think it was very early in the spring.
Yeah.
Some of the trees had just started to leaf out, if I recall it. But Public Works had a little time frame after the winter storms and snow and before their real construction season. So they came in and did the demolition for us, saving us tens of thousands of dollars. And that was actually before town meeting approved our funding. But I had told many committees, including the Board of Selectmen, either way, the old Cap Playground would have to be demolished. And if we replace it with nothing, so be it. But it had gotten to a point where it was dangerous, and we just couldn't keep up with it anymore. But thankfully, town meeting funded our design work, and then the following year funded the cost of the project.
Right. And one of the things that we think about, that OASIS does a lot of work on, is we work from this framework of positive community norms. So we're trying to think about what are most people doing right already, and sort of growing those behaviors. So when you think about all those other healthy behaviors that we were portraying in the video, for example, how do we want to do more of that, as opposed to saying to people, don't do that. You know, we want to talk about, let's do more of this. And I know that when you were thinking about designing the rules for the playground, you took some of that framework into consideration. Are there other things that you want to say about the positive community norms piece?
Well, I think it's a terrific philosophy. I think the theory is sound. You know, I'm a supporter. I've been to a couple of your workshops with Jeff Linkenbach, and I think as an approach towards the way you speak of community and you speak of statistics and so forth, I think that positive community norms is the way to go. I embraced it enough, obviously, and you know this because I called you frequently.
Right.
But I embraced it to the point where, in the end, when we were ready to construct signage for our playground, I said, you know, let's try to do this, and instead of telling people, don't do this, don't do that, let's try to do it in a positive way. And, you know, part of what we decided was that, you know, it's not my playground, it's not your playground,
Right.
it's the people's playground. And even the signage tries to suggest this is your playground, the public's playground.
Right.
And we try to give them some ownership, not just in terms of using it, but in terms of how they police it themselves. So, yeah, and you know, the positive community norms thing, even back in the beginning, some of our initial work, you folks had provided a lot of data for me, so that when I went to the Board of Selectmen and ultimately the Community Preservation Committee, we had some statistical information, some data that we could use, and that came out of your work with the schools and so forth, and that was part of the whole positive community norms movement here.
Right. And the other piece that I love about that framework is it really talks about starting with the spirit first, and the spirit of that space, and you know, that it was originally a community build, and the way people use it, and thinking about families and residents and just all of the positive stuff, and you know, the things that we wanted to continue to grow, and then thinking about, well, what do we know about our existing spaces? How do we want it to be used? So thinking about some of the science behind that, and then, you know, really taking an action, which was thinking about and doing the construction of that space in a way that supported all of those things, the spirit and the science, and it's just really exciting. So I think what I would love to do is, I know that we have some footage of what the space looks like now, the new space, and of the ribbon cutting, so maybe we can show that a little bit. I know we've been sharing some photos of some of the equipment, and we can talk a little bit about how people are using the space now.
This is the ribbon cutting in the spring of 2015. It's myself, Karen Hall, and one of the selectmen, another selectman Cohen, with John Batchelder, back on a slide. John is the now retiring superintendent of public works. This is one of the younger kids' play stations. The park benches were actually donated. That was the Russell family who donated 2 park benches in the memory of their son. Tot swings, back to the younger kids' play station. You can see the rock blocks behind it, getting a little activity there. On that day we had ribbon cutting, we had the animal experience folks come, so we had some animals there. I had a snake in my hand.
Well, that wasn't a loose snake. That was actually somebody brought that snake in. That's good.
I just want to pick up quickly on a point you had made, the whole thing about starting with, in the positive community norms, starting with spirit, and then looking at the science. And, you know, in many ways, in the beginning, I had suggested to many boards and commissions that it was our goal to change the culture of what was happening down there. And when you say those words, it's kind of scary, because you're trying to change behaviors, and it's hard to change lots of people's behaviors. But by changing the site and what was on the site, and doing, in retrospect, some fairly simple things, using that site work and the kinds of equipment, it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And the culture has changed. And it really has become a pretty healthy place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really has. It's pretty exciting. And the other nice piece about this is we actually are getting some national recognition for the work in terms of the positive community norms piece. So Dr. Jeffrey Linkenbach, who is the pioneer of that framework, actually uses some of the materials that we've developed, including that video that we showed at the beginning, to demonstrate how communities can really use positive community norms to change the culture of a space or an area. And the police are really reporting that those risky behaviors have significantly decreased. The neighbors seem very excited and happy about the space. They're not seeing some of the things going on there that they were concerned about before, which is great. And I know they were a big part of the process as well. You guys spent a lot of time collecting feedback from the people who really were intimately familiar with that space because they live in that neighborhood.
And the neighbors were a key part in the planning process,
Mm-hmm.
and they were very, very helpful. And what's happened is it's actually a busier place
Mm-hmm.
than it was before. More parents are pulling up in cars and parking and taking
Mm-hmm.
out their little ones. And I appreciate the neighbors' willingness to contribute, but I think they understood it's a public park, it's a public place, and we can design it so that it might be used more, but it be used in a more positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's happening. And besides that, it's kind of a pretty place to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so if you haven't been there, it's on Pierce Street. It's actually very close to the library, which is great. You can go do some reading, check out some books, take a walk up to the playground in the park, take a walk. It is a beautiful space. So if you haven't had a chance to go by there, we would highly encourage you to do that. I know it's not on everybody's everyday route, but it should be because it's a great location.
And every time I look at one of the big ticket items is the poured in place surface. It's the only playground we have in Stoughton that has this composite kind of rubberized surface. It's easier for us to keep clean and maintain. We can blow it off, and the accessibility just makes it terrific. There it is.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us. I want to thank John Denison for being here with us for this time. And again, please go out and use this wonderful park and playground space. It's your park and playground, and hopefully you can go out and enjoy it.